Okay, so friends, if you are listening, take a seat. We're about to have conversation here. So when I say do not charge your worth, or that charging your worth is actually a hindrance to your business, what I mean by that is that when it comes to business, you charge for the value you add and not for the value you are. And so essentially what I'm saying is that you have to be able to communicate, quantify, and qualify the end result that you are offering to your clients. And so when we focus on charging what we're worth, we make what should be a professional matter personal. We make it about us.
Welcome to the Lazy Millennial Lounge, everyone. Today I am joined by RJ Connell, an income strategist. And RJ, I am so excited to have you on the show today. Thank you so much for being willing to talk to us about corporate clients.
My pleasure.
So, can you let us know what you thought you were going to be doing with your life around the time of high school graduation and how that compares to what you are actually doing today?
Yes. Okay. So very clearly, I was supposed to be in medical school right now. So I would have graduated from university, gone straight into medical school, probably been in about my last year of med school, and then looking to do my residency in neurosurgery.
Okay.
So when I had finished high school, my whole plan was to actually, for majority of my life, my plan was to become a neurosurgeon, was to open up my own hospital. I had always outlined I was going to do, there's a joint program at a university down here that I had my eye on for years. And it was a joint program where you can get your MD as well as your MBA. And I wanted a master's in business because I wanted to open up my own clinic as well so that I could, employ people and just kind of run things the way that I wanted to. And my end goal had always been to not have to work. So I was always like, if I could own something of my own, then I can kind of control what my life will look like, what my work schedule, my income, all that kind of stuff. So I wanted to do that program so badly. Um, and that's what I was planning to do. That was my trajectory. It is clearly not where I am today. So things have changed along the way. And I'm grateful for that, very grateful for it. But I think it was a difficult pivot to kind of move from following that medical trajectory and moving from that medical career into entrepreneurship, which has a lot of risk and is not as clearly defined. There's not a clearly defined path. It's one of those careers where it only really gets praise and has prestigiousness associated with it when you succeed by societal standards. But if anything in between is like not counted in
Like, what
between
are
the
you doing with
journey.
your life? You're just wasting
Exactly.
time.
It's like, go get a job.
So, what sparked the change from wanting to go into medicine to what you're doing now?
Yeah, so it was definitely one of the pivot point was one semester where I had failed all of my courses. And so I had a full plate of courses at the time. I was working like something like 4 jobs, as well as having a full load of school and then extracurricular activities. I've always been very involved in my church. And so at the time I was part of uh, the youth/young adults department and taking a leadership role there as well. And so all of those things combined together, plus like commuting back and forth and like being in any kind of science program, where I feel like when you have regular courses is one thing, but when you have courses that have labs, it's like you have double the courses, right? And so that being said, when that semester rolled around, I had began feeling right from the very beginning. When I got back to school, I remember sitting in my first lecture of the semester. This was the winter semester from January to April. And I remember sitting there and I just could not focus on that first day. And I was like, my mind is exhausted. Like I have nothing left. And at the time, I remember kind of feeling like I want to take the semester off, but that's not a thing for, especially, for me, my parents are Ghanaian. And so it's like, that's not a thing. We just straight school, straight to career, straight to family. Like this is the path of life. My dad used to say that all the time, you rest for the rest of your life. I'm like, what life? Like, when is that? I didn't listen to what I was feeling, and I decided to stay in school. And I failed that entire semester, every single course. Like not like I got a B or I got a C or I got a D. Like literally failed every single course. And so in the process of trying to get myself back on track, because now I was on academic probation. And so in the process of trying to get myself back on track, I was really thinking through, what is it that you want to do, and starting to question what my path was. And although I loved medicine, I had to reflect on the fact that my end goal is to not have to actually work in this career, which should have been a red flag earlier on, but hadn't been until that point.
It's so good that, I mean, of course, it wasn't, I don't imagine that it was a good feeling in the moment of failing those classes, but it almost seems like it was kind of like a wake up call where, like, I kind of hit this point where it's very clear that something is off or not working and that I have to come up with another plan ASAP. So, as opposed to like later down the line, realizing that maybe this isn't the right path for me, you were able to kind of notice that earlier, but also have the emotional intelligence to like process that information and actually think about how you were going to pivot and what you were going to do with it. So, what path did you end up taking?
So from there, I mean, you said emotional intelligence, which thank you for that, but it was also just an excess of time because I was on academic probation. And so I couldn't do a full course load. I had to like essentially prove that I wasn't going to fail my next semester. And so in that, it gave me also space, which I needed, and I'm grateful for. In the end, I'm very grateful for how everything worked out. So I started taking entrepreneurship, and that was one course that I took, and it was such a phenomenal experience. I remember being so excited about it, and like I got to build something from the ground up. We had to start a business as part of the program. We had to create a product or a service. We had to sell it. We had to generate sales, track sales, all that kind of stuff. That was all part of our final assessment from the beginning of the semester to the end of semester. And I loved it. I absolutely loved it. And I was like, I don't think I've ever been as excited about this as I have about anything else. And on top of that, I knew that I was coming from a background of struggling with finances and coming from a background where we had experienced poverty growing up. And so that was also that, being in the back of my mind as I don't want to struggle with finances for the rest of my life. And I want to have that financial freedom, and then getting the opportunity to see entrepreneurship as a path towards that and kind of experience it, even in a controlled environment like a course, was exactly what I needed to say, I think I can do this. And so that was really kind of what provided an alternative path. And I still didn't know exactly what I wanted to do, but I was like, okay, entrepreneurship, at least now I can be under a new umbrella of a profession, right? And so that was kind of where I started. And then from there, the more I worked and the more I moved forward and more things I tried kind of led me to where I am now. And even now, I feel like it evolves so much. I feel like because we're growing and we're learning, that the way we show up in the world and the way we serve in the world also changes with us, right? And so I'm still finding that there are certain things that are changing, that are becoming more clear, certain aspects of the way that I serve that are evolving as well. And so that was to answer your question, that was kind of what led me to the path that I'm on right now.
I think it's such an amazing opportunity that you were able to take a course like that and like almost do like a test run. Like, okay, is this right? Do I like this? What do I like? What don't I like?
Yes.
And like, how do I learn all of these things that are a part of entrepreneurship that so many people, myself included, had no idea about until like we actually became entrepreneurs. So that's really cool. So when you were in that course, the business that you built, was it somewhat related to what you do now, or how did you come to specialize in income strategy?
Yes, so that's a good question. It was not at all related to what I do now. We were working in groups in building that business, and so I got outvoted as to what I wanted to do. But how I ended up with income strategy and corporate consulting was that essentially I mentioned my financial experience in growing up and knowing my own personal struggles with money. So around the same time that I was getting back on track with school after having failed that semester, I was also looking at my financial life and what I wanted to change. And so I began to look at my personal finance because I needed to start there. I didn't have a business at the time, right? So I was just looking at what are the financial skills that I need for myself in order to get out of debt and in order to be able to have the skills to live a life of financial freedom. So as I began to look into that more, I have always been someone who I love dealing with numbers. I love dealing with money specifically and being able to put systems in place around money. And so as I began to do that for my financial life, and when entrepreneurship entered into the scene, then I was like, man, if I can merge these two together and work with people's money inside of business, I would love to do that. And so that was how I ended up on the path towards what I do today. And again, even since it's evolved, right? And so it initially is first solely income strategy, like I help you make money in your business, and then now what we do is really focus around putting systems in place for businesses that want to work with other businesses as well. So we've evolved, and that has grown. It's still dealing with money at the end of the day, and I love that part of my job, but it took some time to get here.
Cool. So now you are helping B2B business models create the systems to operate those business models. Is that what it is?
Yeah, we create systems around really sales systems, right, and sales operations. And so that's really what I like to refer to it as. Is so we help with sales strategy and we help with sales operations. Is what do you need in place in order to support your business growing financially? And so we look at that from a few different perspectives: from the financial perspective, from the client experience perspective, from the process perspective. So there's a lot involved in it, but at the end of the day, we're helping you make money in a very strategic way.
So, in what ways do you work with your clients? Like, are there coaching programs? Is it like a course? How do you do it?
One of the unique things about the way that we do things at RJC Consulting is that we don't have any digital courses. So you'll always get to work with a consultant. And so the way that we have structured it is we have a signature program that's called Systems That Scale. And that is our comprehensive total program for clients who want to work with other B2B companies and are looking to land those corporate contracts. And so corporate can have very different meanings. Corporate can be the small business down the street or even your local entrepreneur or your online entrepreneur that's earning $1 million or more, or even less than that, right? The revenue range there's a very large range, but essentially you want to serve other businesses and provide a professional service to businesses. And so Systems at Scale is our signature program where we do that, where we work with them for 12 weeks ongoing. We have a complete top to bottom as to what systems they need in place around their sales strategy, around their income, around their client experience, around their process, et cetera. And so we go through all of that week by week, where you have one-to-one sessions with your consultant as well as group sessions. So that's our main way that we like to serve our clients. Outside of that, what we also have are CEO quarterly business reviews. And essentially what we're doing there is we're taking a high level look at the business and what needs to be put in place, what strategies need to be put in place in order to support your financial revenue goals for the next quarter. And so what we do is that's a 1-day intensive where we spend the day with the CEO and the key members of their team that need to be involved in that planning. And we outline from beginning to end, we go through the entire business in key areas, and we look at key areas of their client experience, their revenue, their internal systems, their internal support, and what needs to be and more, and what needs to be outlined in order to help them support to reach their financial goals for the next quarter and then to exceed it. So ideally, when we work with clients, then they have the option to just do a one-time service, or they can do multiple for the year so that all 12 months of the year are covered. So that's kind of up to them. But those are the two main ways that we love to work with clients. And part of Systems at Scale specifically is also pricing. And that tends to be a very, very big thing for our clients, is how do they price their services properly for the clients that they want to attract and make sure that they're not leaving any coins on the table. So that's always a big discussion for us as well.
I can testify as a B2B business owner that pricing is so tricky because you have to deal with not only the numbers themselves, but also the psychology around the numbers from like a personal perspective, but also from the client or prospective client's perspective. And there's just so much discomfort initially when you're like trying to figure out how to price a service, especially a high ticket service. So I can imagine how impactful of a component that is for your clients amongst the other aspects that you help them with. So what does that process look like? Like if I am a person who starts working with you, like in what order? Because there's so many systems, right? How do you break that down for your clients and like guide them through the process of developing those systems?
Yeah, so essentially what we do is there it always starts with an assessment to get an understanding of where that business is now. And so one of the things that we are offering is we have an assessment that you can do. It's it's a low cost, and essentially that helps identify where are the gaps in your business, and that's a good diagnostic tool for us, but also for the clients as well, so that they can say, okay, we see that this is an area that we need to focus on, and then based on that, we're able to say, here is how we would move forward and here's what we would recommend. So Systems at Scale, for example, is not open all throughout the year. It only opens up twice a year. And that's because it is an intensive program where we do work very closely with our clients. And they often continue into our support service, which is something called the 90-day close, where we focus on solely pitching for corporate contracts. And so because of that, we have one time we open up Systems at Scale, we work with those clients very long term. So that being said, what we do is, in order to ensure that you are getting the right service and that we are serving you with what you need and what your company needs at this point in time, we always start with that assessment to take note of, what do you have right now? What are the gaps in your business? How can we fill them moving forward? And also, what is this the right time for certain things, right? And so sometimes a company might need a particular service, but they might not need it right now. Or sometimes it's a quick fix, like maybe even just in 30-minute conversation, I can say, hey Megan, just focus right now on getting an onboarding process in place. Once you've got that done, you'll have enough information so that the QBR is going to be a good service for you. And so that diagnostic of the assessment is very helpful for both us within the company and also for the clients to be able to objectively look at, what does the company need and not just what we're feeling. And so one of the things I'll say is, as the business owner, when we are feeling stressed, when we are not seeing the revenue that we need, we sometimes want, like, what's the fastest way to get to my solution, right? And so sometimes that end result is what we need. Sometimes the process is what we need in order to get to that end result. And so it really just helps kind of differentiate, where do we need to start from, in a way that allows for it to be an easier yes, for the client, so that they can see that this is in the best interest of the company. And so that's really where we like to start.
So let's back up for a minute, because there may be some people listening who are either in the very early stages of starting a business, or maybe they are thinking about starting a business and they haven't necessarily narrowed down who their target client or customer is going to be. Do you have any insight to offer around deciding whether a B2B or B2C business model is best for a person, or how to decide whether what you are looking to offer is suitable for a corporate client?
So for anybody who's at the beginning of their business, one of the things that I will say is, it takes some experience within a business of your own or providing a service of your own for you to narrow down a niche. And sometimes you might start off your business, I know, with specificity, who it is you want to serve and who you don't. But for the majority of us, it takes us a little bit of time to then narrow it down to, okay, this is the industry I want to work in. This is the type of service or the type of individual that I want to serve. And so if you are at the beginning and you're maybe struggling with that, or you're just taking any business that comes to you, that's okay. That's most of us, right? That's the norm. And so there's not a problem necessarily with that. Now, if you're looking to see if corporate clients are a way that you can go, or even an aspect or a revenue stream that you can add into your business, I would like to say, look at your past experience. So for example, have you provided services to other companies in the past? And that could be through your 9-to-5 job, through your professional career, through your traditionally professional career, I like to say, because entrepreneurship is professional. And so look at, your past career experience or your past job experience. Have you performed similar services in your career that you can migrate those skills under your own business name and provide those services accordingly? Another thing that I would like to say to look at is, if you feel that you have to, I want to use the right language here. So if you feel that you have to consistently perform below what you know you are capable of in order to meet your clients where they are, then that's probably a good indication that you're capable of serving at a higher level and that the clients you're attracting probably aren't aligned with that.
Mm.
Considering there are some people who want to work, who have high level of expertise and want to work with people who are just at the very beginning. There's nothing wrong with that either if that's your desire. But if you have, so I'll give an example. I had a client who is in communications, and essentially one of the things that she's very experienced in communications, had 20 plus years of experience working with corporate clients. And so that being said, when she's working with individuals, was finding it difficult to communicate to them what she needed them to do, or what the business of their company needed. And that was because not only did they not have communications experience in general, but they also didn't understand what that looked like within a company or a corporate setting, right? And so as part of our conversations it seems like there's misalignment here between the service you're offering and the stage at which the clients you're serving are at in their business, right? And so sometimes it might not even be the client itself or the company itself. It could just be the stage that they're at right now. And maybe you need to serve someone who's further along rather than just at the beginning.
Yeah.
And so looking at, if you feel like you constantly are having to slow your thinking down or slow yourself down, or you're not able to deliver your full value of your expertise because it's going above your client's head, or they're feeling overwhelmed, that's probably a good indication that you might be able to serve somebody at a higher level.
That's really helpful. And then, so based on those observations you're making, then you can kind of figure out where in the market you need to be and who exactly your target client is and what stage of the business they're in, so that you can more accurately tailor your service to that group of people rather than a group of people who are not necessarily aligned to your area of expertise.
Exactly. Finding that fit in the market, of the right client who needs what you have to offer and you can deliver in a way that is in alignment with who you are and your level of expertise. That is like the ultimate sweet spot of being able to find the right clientele, being able to fully deliver your service. And on top of that, being able to charge for the full value of your service because you're able to fully deliver, right? And you don't have to hold anything back, and you're able to give an amazing end result and experience to your client.
So, okay, so that was for our newish business owners. Let's take it a step further. So, let's say someone has started their business already. They may be like 1 to 2 years in, you're still figuring things out. And when they are hearing you talk about systems, they understand what that means on a very high level, but in terms of like actual examples of systems, they might not understand what that means or how that could be relevant to their business. So can you take like an example of a process, I don't know, maybe sales or maybe onboarding, and just provide like an example of what some systems are that are involved in that process?
So I'll actually use pitching
Okay.
as one, because I feel like, again, regardless of what stage you're at in your business, this is something that would be helpful for you. And also, the further you get into your business, the better it is. So essentially, in the online world, pitching is the beginning of a sales team, right? And so traditionally, a sales team, what do? They pursue leads. They do cold calls, they do cold emailing, right? They do outreach. And so that's what a traditional sales team does. If anybody ever has any kind of experience in sales, or even think about like your local service provider of your cell phone, your TV, when you were looking to set that up, you probably talked to somebody on the sales team. Now, pitching, when it comes to entrepreneurship and being tipped the newer online type of business, the newer business model, we do pitches. And so essentially having a process in place for that is what I like to say. It creates a standard operating procedure for your sales team. So as your company grows, then that becomes the foundation of your sales team moving forward. So an example of a system when it relates to pitching is having very clearly outlining. You can do this in a document. You can do this in your project management software. You can do this on your phone as notes if that's how you best, communicate things. I recommend it being elsewhere, but however it works for you right now, let's just say. So it's very clearly outlining what's the key information that you need to capture before you pitch this person. So as an example, we have something that's called a pitch research brief. And so essentially this outlines, here are all the key pieces of information that no matter who on my team is handling, they know that if I ask them to look into this particular podcast, whether it is a pitch for a speaking engagement, whether it's a pitch for a new client, here is all the research that we need to know before we even craft an email to them, right? And so that can include things like their name, the company size, the type of clientele that they serve, what country they're in. It'll include some kind of demographic information and then also more specific information. We capture personal information about that point of contact. Have they recently been promoted? Is there, a recent milestone that we can congratulate them on? What's a point of contact that we can have that's a little bit more personal rather than just professional or just business, right? And so we outline all that information. That in itself is a type of system that we put in place. Because essentially what it does is it allows for there to be consistency in the research, no matter who is doing the work. So whether it's me, whether it's a virtual assistant, whether it's my brother that I say, hey, I need you to help me out today, like he can produce the same amount of work with no other input even into the business at the end of the day, because that system is put in place. Now, we also have systems about how to do that research and how to find that particular information, and also information about how to troubleshoot as well, where you're not able to find particular things as well. So that's all part of those are all the minutia of that's part of the system as well. But the overall thing is, is there a process in place for someone to follow that will produce a consistent and repeatable outcome regardless of who is handling the task?
I think that is such a helpful definition to provide, because I'm like a systems minded person. So like I can't function if there are not systems around me, but I know that not everyone is like that. And I think that sometimes there's a perception that systems equals technology, which is not necessarily the case. It doesn't mean that you necessarily have to have this $5,000 tool to do XYZ for your business. So like, don't let a perception of tech steer you away from incorporating systems into your business or working with someone who can help you incorporate systems, because it's not about the technology, all the time.
And I think automation comes after you've systematized something, right? So it's hard to automate something without a process in place, because an automation essentially says, like, how do I get from one place to another? Or how do I move one thing from one place to another, right? Where if you don't have that set up, then there's really nothing for the automation. There's nothing to be automated. So I definitely think, if you are looking at systems in your business, and if you're at a place where you're looking to scale and you're looking to implement systems, that don't let technology be a hindrance. To your point, Megan, it is something that comes later, and automation and technology only optimize what's already existing. So if you don't have a system in place, or if you are currently running inefficiently, technology and automation is only going to augment that. So it'll make your inefficiencies more visible and more problematic as well. So I definitely don't recommend automating something that you haven't yet streamlined.
So let's go back to pricing. We touched on that a little bit earlier, and I know that it's something that a lot of business owners struggle with, no matter where they are in their business journey. So you mentioned something to me that I thought was very interesting, which was about the importance of not charging what you're worth, and how that can actually be a hindrance for your business, which I think is the opposite of what a lot of people hear, which is, oh, charge what you're worth. So can you talk us through that statement and kind of give us some insight on how we should be pricing our services?
Okay, so friends, if you are listening, take a seat. We're about to have a conversation here. So when I say do not charge your worth, or that charging your worth is actually a hindrance to your business, what I mean by that is that when it comes to business, you charge for the value you add and not for the value you are. And so essentially what I'm saying is that you have to be able to communicate, quantify, and qualify the end result that you are offering to your clients. And so when we focus on charging what we're worth, we make what should be a professional matter personal. We make it about us. And one of the common things that I have seen in the online world, especially when it comes to pricing, is pricing around what you want to earn for the year, right? And so, or what you need in order to live off of as a salary. And so, while I understand that, of course, if you have no measure for pricing, then start somewhere. I'm not I'm not bashing that if that's the only thing, if that's the only knowledge you have around pricing. However, when it comes to working with a B2B client, for example, essentially when you're looking at charging what you're worth, you're focusing on yourself and you're not focusing on the value you add to the client. What that does is it hinders your communication. It actually prevents you from having to get crystal clear on the end result, the value, and the benefits that the result are going to have for your client's company, and you don't communicate it well when you are speaking with them. And so that lack of communication, that lack of confidence, and sometimes we even show up as, well, this is the price, this is what I charge for my service, and we get defensive. It becomes a personal exchange rather than a professional exchange around what it is that I'm offering your business, and communicating in a way that's going to allow them to see the value. Because at the end of the day, we are focused on ourselves, and that's what we show when we're having those conversations. It comes through whether or not we're conscious about it.
Yeah.
So when I say don't charge what you're worth, charge for the value you add and not for the value you are. It's keep the professional matter professional, and the personal, when you're thinking about how much what you want to earn, that's an internal calculation that you do when you're looking at your entire revenue and determining your salary for yourself. That has nothing to do with your pricing. That has to do with how you handle and manage your finances internally. Does that make sense?
It makes total sense. And I would highly recommend that if y'all need to run that back, this would be a great time to do so because that is extremely, extremely, extremely valuable information. And it's not just helpful because you obviously have to come up with a price for your service. I think the most impactful part was around those conversations that you referenced, because you can have a price for your service. You can decide that you're going to charge $11,000 for your service. But if in the midst of a conversation with a prospect, you feel resistance when it's time for you to say how much your service actually is, and you can't actually open your mouth to verbalize that your service is $11,000, then you're not going to get $11,000, because it's not about how much it is. It's about, are you able to communicate that? Because if you can't say that, then you're not going to get it. And I think that an issue that is easy to run into is, oh yeah, I'm going to sell a high ticket service, but when it comes to actually having the sales conversations, you don't feel comfortable saying the actual price. And it goes back to you not either believing or understanding why the service that you are providing is worth that amount. Yes. And so, like you said, if you are charging based on the value of what you are helping that client to achieve, then that validates your pricing. Whereas if you just came up with this number because you did some division based on $120,000 salary a year, yeah, how are you going to explain to this person that yes, you have decided to charge them $5,000 because you have decided that you want to make $120,000 this year? That's not going to work.
No.
So
And I also like to say, think about if it was you,
exactly,
looking to hire somebody for the service, and you're like, okay, can you explain to me? And I mean, we would hopefully never say this, but your thought process about your pricing is, well, to your point, I did some division, and in order for me to make $120,000, I need to charge you $5,000, and I need, a certain amount of clients at this price point. Like, I that's not my concern.
goodbye.
Exactly.
Thank you
There's
for
no
wasting
way.
my time.
Right. So it's also good to put yourself in that position and think about you as the person who's looking to procure that service. Mm-hmm. You want that person to be able to explain to you, especially when you have the money. A lot of B2B services, they're not concerned about money when you can communicate value, right? They're willing to pay. They have hundreds of thousands of dollars designated specifically for consultancy services. And so you want to be able to communicate that this is why you should choose me. It's less about the price and more about the value. And
Mm-hmm.
it's helpful to put yourself in that position and say, if it was you on the other end, what would make you say yes to paying a maybe higher than normal price point because of how that person communicated about the value and the impact that it was going to have on your business.
How do you how do you help people figure out what that value is? Because there are some services that are, so I think when we are talking about value, it's a little bit easier to figure out what that value is if you provide a service that directly and clearly correlates to a return on that investment for the client. Like something that is like, I don't know, bookkeeping or accounting or something like very financial in nature, or even your business, like as an income strategist. I can very clearly tie that to a monetary benefit for the end user. But if it's something that's a little bit more abstract or a little bit less directly tied to money, how do you help your clients figure out what that value is? Like put a number on that value.
So essentially, you as the expert have to own your expertise. And what I mean by that is you know inherently what the result is that you are delivering for your client. So this is where and why the sales systems are so important. One of the key aspects of having a onboarding process and offboarding process in place is collecting metrics so that you can measure both objectively and also qualifiably in terms of like things like testimonials. So you can measure where they started and where they're finishing. So when you have that built in as part of your process, you can very easily communicate what the return on investment is. And you can say things like, as an example, let's even use something a little bit more abstract like health. Um, our or weight loss, not health. Health is very broad, but let's say weight loss. So our clients on average typically lose a total of 20 pounds within the first 90 days that they work with us, as an example. That's very quantifiable, even or that could be something like inches off of their body. If you're dealing with something like, I had a past client who runs a hairdressing salon. So as an example, having an onboarding and offboarding process in place, you can ask your clientele, and granted, this is not a B2B service, it's a B2C service, but still in terms of quantifying results. So you can ask your clients at the very beginning, what is it that you're struggling with? Why is it you're looking for a new hairdresser? In her particular case, she specialized with working with kinks, coils, and curls. And so that was her specialty. It was texture over ethnicity. So regardless of what your race was, this is what we specialize in. And so that was, one of the things that you can ask at the very beginning is, what is it that is making you look for a new solution, right? And what isn't working for you? What are the results that you've experienced in the past? And so maybe you have clients who say, I'm not able to style my hair in a way that looks good. I'm not able to maybe maintain my natural texture because I don't really have the education around how to do that. So you collect what seems like what seems like qualifiable information, and you turn that into quantifiable information. So the thing is, with collecting information like that, you can then say a certain percentage of our clients who begin with us feel that they cannot style their hair, very simply. By the time they finish working with us, 50% or more, hopefully, feel that they have that they now have the knowledge and skill set to be able to confidently style their hair. We've also followed up, as an example, with these same clients, and 85% say that after the first 60 days of joining our hair salon or receiving our services or our education, that they have been able to confidently style their hair and are now spending less or feeling a certain amount of less stress around hairstyling or hair products or that kind of aspect of it. So at the end of the day, what you receive from your clients may not necessarily be numbers, or you might not necessarily be tracking numbers, but when you have a solid on and offboarding process in place, that's really going to help you be able to quantify the results that you're getting. And then how that all ties into pricing, to go back to the initial question that you asked, is that's one part of it, is, how to quantify the results of your process and of your service. But at the end of the day, we have a system in place that's called the pillars of pricing. And so within the pillars of pricing, we go over 4 different categories. So we go over your profile, the profile of the company that you are looking to target. We go over their position in the market, your own company's position in the market. We go over what your proposition is, your unique value proposition, and then we go over profit margins. So all 4 of those things put together are what create your pricing strategy. As you can see, there's nothing in there about feelings. There's nothing in there about personal salary. It's very objective and it's formulaic in how you create your pricing. And when you communicate, you know exactly why you are pricing yourself for this service, because you've clarified your unique value proposition, which is what makes you different than any other company that offers the same or similar services. You've established your position in the market, meaning that you've taken the standpoint that you are going to show up as a Neiman Marcus and not as a Walmart. So you're inherently already attracting certain clientele to you, and it even subconsciously sets the expectation of what the pricing is going to be like to work with you. So you've established your position in the market. You know, based on the company profile, who is it that I need to target and who do I not need to target? Who do I need to leave out of my marketing and my messaging because they're just not suited or aligned for my service? And then your profit margins, you know exactly what's built in there so that you are covering your cost and that you are making a profit every single time you land a client. So it's very formulaic, and part of being able to quantify the results plays into your unique value proposition. So that's how that's how we inform our clients about how to set that pricing. And so it's that strategy that we use, that process that we use in order to help determine unique pricing for each one of our clients based on those 4 things.
Thank you so much for breaking that down for us. That was so clear and
My
really
pleasure.
helpful. Thank you for that. You have a podcast, correct? The Profit Scale?
Yes, the profit scale.
Is this the kind of thing that people learn when they tune into your podcast? Tell us more about that.
Yes, it is. So in the profit scale, we cover, it's very strategy focused. So I like to say that we have other platforms where people can engage with us. Every month we do a conversation, which is geared towards Black, Indigenous, and people of color entrepreneurs, and just providing a place where we can have business related conversations without judgment and just providing knowledge. So those are completely free. There's no charge for that. And that's one platform. But when it comes to the Profit Scale podcast, it's very strategy based. So it's one of those things where you show up with a pen and a pencil, or a pen and a paper, and you make sure that you're ready to take notes, or that you're taking notes on your phone. And so we go over things like strategy. You know, we've talked about topics like pricing. We talked about topics like understanding how vision plays a role within your business. We talked about 4 components of scaling your business and what you need in place in order to scale. So it's very focused on strategy for entrepreneurs who serve other B2B clients or who want to be in the corporate realm and serving other corporate clients. And it's a place where you can just come and learn and make sure you're walking away with something to either elevate or provide a new perspective on how to grow your business and not just maintain it, or how so that you can reflect on what you currently have in place and see what changes you can make to help you get to where you're moving your business towards.
That sounds awesome. I'm excited to tune in and learn more, and also to attend some of the conversations. That's such a cute name.
I like it too.
um,
I'm like, oh, that's so
if
fancy.
you do say so yourself,
I
right?
know, right? Pat self on the back.
How else can people engage with you? You mentioned some other avenues. How else can people connect with you online?
Yes. So I would love for anybody who's looking to learn more about our services. I always encourage people to come to the conversations. So whether or not you fit into that bracket of a BIPOC entrepreneur, we welcome allies as well. So no one is excluded from from participating in that conversation. But why I like to say for you to attend is, one, it's free, and 2, it gives you an opportunity to see what it would be like to work with us, right? So if you want to invest your time before you invest your money, that's a great way to kind of figure out, is this right for me? Um, So conversations are great. You can access that via our website, so rjcconsulting.com. And when you go there, you'll see our Work With Me page where you can find out more about how you can work with us, our Systems at Scale service, as well as our CEO quarterly business reviews. Those are the two main things. And if you're just looking for, I'm not sure what I need right now, and I'm not really sure how to move forward, you can also access our assessment there. And so we're currently just kind of in the process of getting all revamping our current existing website, but everything that you'll need to connect with us is there. And then I'll also just add our Instagram platform as well. So that's a little bit more of a fun platform where you can just kind of see what we're doing behind the scenes, see some of the work that we're doing with our clients. And our Instagram handle is rjcconsulting.global. And you can come and hang out with us there.
Awesome. Thank you so much, RJ. This has been an incredibly enlightening episode, and I'm really, really grateful to you for dropping by.
Thank you so much, Megan.